Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's interview. I am Candace Paul, founder of A Knowing Spirit LLC, a publishing company that is much more than publishing. We build communities online and help creatives with uplifting messages share their vision with the world. Today, I had the opportunity to speak with the inspirational Roma Downey, an Emmy nominated actress and producer whose latest project is Resurrection. We also had the opportunity to speak about family, faith, loss, and doing God's work.
Best compliment you ever got?
Because got to be on Touched by an Angel all those years, and it was the kind of show that really impacted people in a positive way. Unlike other actresses maybe who, I don't know what other actresses hear, but I hear people saying your show or your portrayal of Monica really touched my life, really helped me when I was going through grieving, really helped me when, my kids were in trouble. And so that's been a lovely compliment to be able to walk with people through the tragedies of their life. Also, when my mother passed away when I was just a little girl, and my father took me to the cemetery, and it was a cold Irish spring morning, and a little butterfly flew by, and my dad said that could be your mother's spirit right there. And I think ever since then I've just associated seeing butterflies with the memory of my mother, and it's very comforting to me.
Hi, Roma. Welcome to A Knowing Spirit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Absolutely. Well, I was looking at your filmography and I was blown away by all the work that you've done. But more than that, it's like you were able to build out your own niche, and you were able to focus on films that were about family, faith, friendship, relationships. How are you able to do that in this industry?
I know. Well, I just always had a really strong intention that when I started my company, Lightworkers, it was designed to create content that was uplifting, inspiring, encouraging, that would maybe ignite people's passion for goodness, and to remind people that there are still good people in the world doing good things, because there's so much bad news, and the bad news gets all the attention. And and I think that we just need to make more noise for the good guys. And so that's what I've been doing, back from my early days as an actor on Touched by an Angel, which ran for almost 10 years.
Yes.
And it was such a blessing to be on that show, to be working with the fabulous and beloved Della Reese, and and every week as undercover angels, we were able to bring a message of God's love to the world. And the message was very simple. That was that there is a God, and that he loves us, and that he wants to be part of our lives. And before we would shoot those scenes each week, Della and I would hold hands and we would pray. And we would pray that there would be less of us and that there would be more of God, and that we could be used as conduits. And I've tried to take that same intention into my work as a producer with my Lightworkers content. And the same prayer is prayed over each of these projects, that there would be less of us and more of God. And each of these projects, deeply embedded within it, is the same message, that there is a God, that he loves us, and that he wants to be part of our lives. So our new movie, Resurrection, even though it's a big, sweeping, biblical, epic drama set in the first century, filled with danger and tension and excitement, it's very compelling. But deep in the heart's core of the picture is that same message, because Jesus died because he loved us, and he died because he wants to be part of our lives, and he rose because he loves us. And so it really is the greatest love story, the greatest hope story. Yeah. And we just felt that now, having come through this challenging year with COVID pandemic, a challenging year with the election, and how divided we've been, that we're hungry for stories of hope. And there is no greater story of hope than the resurrection of Jesus.
Wow. Wow. You hit the nail right on the head with all of that. And I had the opportunity to preview the film. And what I
Oh,
really, yeah, I did. And what I really liked about it, it was focusing more on the disciples and what they were feeling and going through during that time, and really what it was like to be a witness. What was it like to make that choice to do that, to focus on their experience as well?
yes. Well, we felt we haven't really seen that in a film, that we get to understand the story from their point of view. And I think, now from our 21st century vantage point, we look at those disciples and we think of them as lofty, men and women of the early church, courageous heroes, martyrs, larger than life. And yet the truth is that, they must have been, vulnerable and had all the human emotions that you or I might have had if we had found ourselves back in that time. And we wanted to show their humanity, and because it gives each of us an opportunity to relate to them. Um, and, for instance, at the beginning of the film, the movie starts at the crucifixion, where many other Easter movies start much further back. We start at the crucifixion. And really, our first dramatic scene is the disciples all gathering and coming back together after the crucifixion. Now, we know that the only disciple that remained at the foot of the cross with Jesus was John, or John the Beloved, as he's often referred to. Mary Magdalene was there, and Mary, the mother of Jesus. Judas had already betrayed Jesus, so he was gone. But there were 10 other disciples, and none of them were at the cross. So it begs the question, where were they?
Yeah.
Like, where did they go? And so I think it's safe to assume that they were scared to death and that they ran away, because if they were killing Jesus, chances are they were going to be next. And so that first scene where we see them all slowly coming back, it's such an emotional room because they're filled with grief and heartache because Jesus is dead.
Yeah.
They're filled with confusion because their leader is dead. Now, what are they going to do? What are they going to do next? They're filled with fear that they might be killed next. And they're filled with guilt and shame that they ran away. And I think it's a marvelous entry point into what's an incredible story, because then, of course, we stay with them through the 3 days. Jesus has promised he will come back. And he does.
Yeah.
And and the movie just opens up into just an extraordinary telling of the biggest miracle from our Bible. You could take the Christmas story out of the Bible and the New Testament would still hold up. But if you took the Easter story and the resurrection out of the Bible, the New Testament is a very different story. This is the most important. It's the cornerstone of our faith.
Absolutely.
And, and we're just, the idea that maybe families together could watch the film over Easter from the safety and comfort of their own homes. We made the movie hoping it would be a resource, that it would be a gift to the church, that it would be a resource to families to use it as maybe as a teaching or a way to start a conversation with your own kids. But anyway, as a way to remember what Easter is really about, because it's, we all love that Easter bunny, but it's easy to get distracted with the bunny and the chickens and the eggs around Easter time. It's easy to forget what the real message of Easter is about.
That is beautiful. And, and about you as a storyteller, because I want to get into your work as a writer as well. Last year, my father passed away, and it's been a tough time. And your book, Box of Butterflies, where it talks about that experience with loss and looking for meaning in your life, like, can you tell us a little bit more about that and how powerful it was for you?
Yes, I'm so sorry that you lost your father. I know how how that just shakes your world, right? It's your dad, your daddy, and I also lost my mother at a very young age. I was just 10, and I was in my very early 20s when I lost my dad, and so grief has been a much unwanted companion who's walked with me through my life. And I loved Miss Della Reese like a mother. She adopted me like a daughter, and she also passed. So, it's everybody's going to be touched by grief in their lives. And I wrote Box of Butterflies. Really, it was born out of my own experiences and my own sufferings. And I'm so grateful that it was able to minister to you in some ways, or comfort you, or just help to reframe. I mean, because it's really, I don't know how I would have endured my losses if it hadn't been for the resurrection, because it is the promise of the resurrection and the promise of heaven that as believers we know you'll be with your dad again. That doesn't mean you're not going to miss him
Mhm.
until it's your time to leave. Of course you will. But I chose to try to live my best life for my mom and dad. And I continue to do that. Everything I do or make, I'm like a little kid. I still imagine my dad saying, "Oh, you're a great wee girl. Look what you did. You made a beautiful movie for Easter." It's like I'm still trying to please him
Yeah.
and be a good daughter for him, and that doesn't go away.
Oh,
That doesn't die when he dies. My dad, if you remember the story in my book about the moon,
mm,
um, I told a story where my dad took me outside and he showed me the moon in the night sky. I was about ready to leave for college in England, and this is before cell phones and everything. And he said, "Wherever you go in the world, it's the same moon shining down on you, and I will leave you a message at the moon." And so when I was in England at university and I'd be walking home at night, I'd look up in the night sky and I'd see the moon and I'd pick up my dad's message. I knew that he loved me. And so when my dad died, I was very concerned that my next experience with the moon, that I wouldn't find his voice there. And of course, still leaves me messages. He's dead many years, but I still, every moon I see, my dad is still from the other side leaving me love messages. So, our loved ones don't die. It just changes form. I think it just changes form. But I'm glad the book was helpful to you. But in my book and my TV shows, from being an actress to now the TV shows and films that I produce as a producer, it's all connected. It's really, and I think if you're an artist, whether you're a writer or a painter or a movie maker, it all comes from the same source. Manifests itself differently, but it comes from the same source, don't you think?
I completely agree with that. And that's what our platform's about. We help writers and visual artists who are believers get their work to the world. And so your platform, lightworkers.com, which is awesome, it does the exact same thing. And I don't think there can't be enough of that. So last question for you. What's some inspirational advice you would give people who are artists and believers?
Gosh, well, something that just popped into my mind is when I was because I used to be a painter, so I've been in all avenues of expressive arts, and I was doing a dissertation on the Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh, and he, got increasingly challenged with mental illness throughout his life, and you can see that really show up in his brushwork. Gets darker and more intense. But he wrote a letter to his brother Theo, and I'm paraphrasing it badly, I'm sure, but in it he said it was no longer enough for him to be the painter. He wanted to be the paint. And at that time, it struck me so profoundly that I no longer really wanted to be a painter. I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be the paint. And so it inspired me to really step out with courage into that next stage of my career of manifesting. And, but I think really for people of faith, it's like to your own self be true. Maybe before you paint or write or whatever you're doing, center yourself and call in the Holy Spirit to be your co-creator, so that you're not writing or drawing or painting by yourself, that it's, that you just invite God to work through you and let your prayer be more of you and less of me, God. And you'll be amazed what you can create together.
Thank you so much, Roma. I really appreciate it.
Wish you a beautiful, safe, and happy Easter season.
Thank you so much. All the best.